Hey, and welcome back to another video of learning Java 2D game programming. So in our last video, we implemented a simple score to our game. So now we have a score that is 0, and it's updated so that when we isolate a person, if they weren't sick, we get minus 250, and if they were sick, and I need to be helped here, turning on cheat mode so I can see who's sick and who's not. So there we have a sick person. Or you could just really take my word for it. We're gonna get 250 points if we isolate a sick person. So, Jesus, there we go. All right, so we did that. However, this score is not persisted anywhere, and after we are done with this little game, it's going to be gone forever. So today we are going to be persisting our scores and making a little high score view so that we can see what the best scores are. So let's get to that. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new state. So I'm going to let the score view be its own state. And I mean, maybe we want to make it a substate here, because we're probably only going to use it from the game. No, let's make it its own state. We can always move it if we decide that that is better. So I'm going to make a state called, or a package called score inside of the state package. I'm going to create a new class. I'm going to call this the score state. It's going to extend state. Here we have that. So this state is going to be saving and loading our scores from a file. And when it has loaded it, it needs to store it somehow. So we're going to create something to store it. And instead of storing it as a list of, I don't know, just scores, we're going to first of all make a class called score, which will have a timestamp and the score. And we're also going to make a score list class that will contain a list of the score, but that's going to be helpful when we load and save, and we're going to be able to ask the class for the top 10 or whatever we want. So we're going to make something that's, maybe we can call it scores, or if we think that that's too similar to just score, we can also call it score list or score collection or whatever, high score. I don't know. Let's call it score list for now. So this is a class that we need to make. So I'm going to create score list, and let's just put it in the score state for now, and we might move it later. All right, so this score list, it's going to have, as you might have guessed, a list of scores, and we don't have score yet. So I'm going to create this class as well. And let's start at the bottom. So this isn't going to have any other self-made class. So what do we want our score to have? Our score is going to have a local date time, which will be the timestamp of when we made this score. And it's also going to keep an int that is the actual score. All right, so Alt insert, let's make some getters so that we can get both of those. I'm going to make something called get formatted timestamp. So here we're going to format this timestamp into something that we can later put inside of a UI text and display to the screen. So I'm going to say timestamp.format and date time formatter of pattern. And now we can give it a pattern. And so I was thinking, and this is usually how it looks when you give date patterns in different programming languages. So year, and then I want it knows that this is going to be replaced by the year, the two last numbers of the year. We could have done this, and then it would have said all of the 4 numbers of the year. So there are predetermined characters that will be switched out to the date. And then this is just going to be there as it is when we get the string. It knows that this character does not get replaced with anything, so it just leaves it as it is. And that way we can really format this how we want it, if we want a space or if we want, any of those things. But there are some predetermined characters that will be turned into the date. So big M's is for month, and then small d's, or what do you say, capital M's and lowercase d's are days, because then we have capital H's is hours, and lowercase m's are minutes. So if you would have wanted to, you could have tagged on seconds or whatever, but I'm going to keep it like this. So year, month, day, hours, and minutes. That's how it's going to look for me. All right, so I'm going to make a helper static method, create new. It takes a score, but not a date, because we set the date to whenever we call this. I'm going to say score new score is equal to a new score. And then I'm going to say that new score dot score is equal to score. I know it's a lot of score here. And then new score dot timestamp is equal to local date time dot now. And then let's just return that new score. Great. Now, as I said, we want to be able to persist this. So let's implement persistable. We just need to tell it how will this class be serialized and how will it be deserialized. So I'm just going to make a string builder. Following convention, I'm going to start with appending the simple name. Now we have a problem. So we can't use the regular delimiter. So I chose the colon character, and that is actually used by the date time when it deserializes. So we'll just choose another delimiter for now, and then we'll just get back to this and see how we can improve it and make this whole system better. But just to move on, we'll just give it a different delimiter for now, and that will work for this class because it contains on its own how it's going to be serialized and deserialized. All right, so I'm just going to choose some character that is a different character. I'm going to choose this character. All right, so what do we want to put first? We can say timestamp to string. And then let's add another one of this custom delimiter. And then I'm going to say string builder append score. And then let's return string builder to string. All right, and then applying the serialized data shouldn't be too hard. So we're just going to get the tokens from the serialized data split, and then we have this custom delimiter, so we don't split the timestamp into many tokens. And then I'm going to say date is equal to local date time dot parse, and tokens at the first index, or index 1, because at 0, and we call that timestamp. Thank you. There we go. And then score is equal to integer parse int tokens index 2. There we go. So that should be it for this class. I'm just going to close it off for now. So now we have a list of scores. All right, I'm just going to make a an empty constructor, so don't take that in. Instead, we're just gonna make sure we initialize it to a new array list. Great. I'm gonna make a add method. So score, which will do score list add score. Then let's actually make this method that we talked about. I'm gonna make a method called get top 10. So if we have more than 10 scores in our list, it's gonna get the top 10. Otherwise, it'll probably just give us the ones that we have. So we're gonna use streams. I'm gonna say score list.stream sorted. And in here, comparator, comparing. Let's use a method reference. So score, get score, but this will give us the score in the wrong order. It's gonna give us the smallest score first. So we're gonna have to reverse it. And then we say limit 10, and then we're just gonna collect it to a list. But we want this entire list to be serialized. So let's implement persistable. Implement the methods, and let's see how we can do these. I'm gonna say string builder is equal to new string builder. And then for score in score list, string builder append score.serialize, just like that. And then I'm gonna actually use the column delimiter. So another reason why we should probably look at it. So this is gonna look nice when we look inside of the file, so that it comes in a column, I guess, and not in one long row. But that's it. So string builder dot toString. And then when we apply it, let's say tokens is equal to serialized data split by the column delimiter. And then let's just make sure that we clear the score list in case there was something in there to begin with. And then let's do for int I is equal to 1. I is less than tokens length, I++. And this is because this first token is going to be whatever's on the left side of this column delimiter, which isn't going to be a score. So let's create an empty score, new score. Then let's apply serialized data from tokens at index I. And then let's score list add this score that we have loaded. That's it for our score list. First, let's make sure that we have a game map. So I'm just going to load game map. And I'm going to do load scores. And I'm going to put that in here. So this will load the scores from a file. And I'm going to do it like this. Score file path. Then we need to find the path to that. So I'm going to say score state class get resource. And I'm just going to do this for now. So it's going to give us the root folder for our project. And then say get file. So that will give us the entire path to this folder on your computer. And then let's just tag on scores.txt. So this will be the entire file path to our score. Then let's just check. If we try to create a file of this score file path, we can ask it exists. So we'll know if the file already exists, and if it does, we're going to load it. Currently, we don't have a way of loading things that aren't a map, so let's create that. I'm going to say score list is equal to, let's make persistable IO, and then say load. And I'm going to show you something. So let's first actually create that. Let's go into the IO package. I'm going to make a new class. I'm going to call it Persistible IO. And now a map is a persistable. So we can actually make this map IO. Actually, we could have removed it, but we're not going to. And to save time, we aren't gonna change it today. So we're gonna change this later so that it uses this instead, so that we don't duplicate that code. But in interest of time, we're not doing that now. But let's see how we want to change this. So first of all, we don't want to tag on this maps thing and create a folder if it doesn't exist, because we don't know what we're going to get in here. We're definitely going to get a persistable. And then we're going to need the file path. And we have to trust that whoever is calling this has done the checking before. I mean, we don't have to, but we're not gonna check all folders today and see if they exist and then make them. That is something that we can do in the future. So we're gonna at least check. So if file path is, let's just check if it's null first. If it's null or the file path is empty, then let's throw a new illegal argument exception and say that file path cannot be null or empty. There we go. And if we get by this step, we'll just have to trust that this file path is hopefully correct. So I'm going to put that in here, file path. And then let's just say persistable serialize. So that's the save file. Now it can save any persistable. Great. Now let's go to the load class or the load method. It's going to be very different though, because we don't give back a game map. In fact, we don't really know what we're giving back. I mean, it's going to be a persistable. So it's going to be a class T that extends persistable. T. So we're giving back this T, but we're not going to be able to load the graphics either because we don't know if this persistable even has graphics. So in the case of the score, it's not going to have it. So this won't be done inside of this method. It's going to be done outside of this method where you have loaded it up and you know if it needs to be, if the graphics needs to be reloaded or not. So we're not going to load it. What do we need? We do need the file path here. And to be able to create a new instance of this generic class T, we actually have to send in the class. Otherwise, the program isn't going to know at runtime what class this is. So therefore, let's give it a class, and this is class T class. So we're saying that we're going to send in a class, and it's going to be of the same type that we are returning. And then let's give it the string file path. All right, I'm just going to copy this check. So we're going to check that the file path isn't null and isn't empty. So if it's OK, then we're just going to say new file reader, and here we're going to give it the file path and hope that that's OK from the outside. And now, instead of game map, which we don't know, I'm going to say T persistable is equal to class get declared constructor, and this takes parameter types. So this is a way of sort of, if you know what class is going to be and you know that it's going to have a special set of parameters, you can actually create an instance from a specific constructor. So we're going to have the no args constructor. So no arguments there. And then you just say new instance, and here you give it arguments. So what it's saying now is this can throw exceptions. So let's just add this catch here. And then this wants several catch clauses, and we can actually collapse them if we want to. Currently, we're just printing the stack trace, so for me, that's fine. All right, this will all be the same. And then we just say persistable, apply serialized data, and then give back that persistable. All right. If we, for some reason, made it past here, which we shouldn't, it can have returnal. We should never get there because either we got the resistible or we crashed and burned horribly. All right, so now persistable load. Now we have to tell it that this is going to be a score list, and then we need to give it the file path, and we have the file path. So the score file path. And if we didn't have this file, if it's the first time or for whatever reason it does not exist, let's just make score list a new score list. So just an empty score list. All right, here we got load scores. Let's make the save equivalent. So first we need to ensure that this exists. So let's actually put it in a file instead. So I'm going to put this in a file like so. So this can be inside of a file even if it doesn't exist. So we can do this. I'm going to say score file path. Maybe we can even call it file. And we can say create new file, and we can be safe saying that. So if I'm just I can just click here so that you can see what this says. It says atomically creates a new empty file named by this abstract file name if and only if a file with this name does not yet exist. So the fact is that if this file does exist, it does not overwrite it. It does nothing in that case. So this is safe to put here. But it does want the catch clause, so I'm just going to add that on. And then I'm going to say persistable IO, save, and I'm going to say score list and score file get path. There we go. So now we have a state that can load and save scores. However, we're never adding a new one. So when we enter this state, let's make sure we always have a score with us like that. And then let's first load scores. And let's do score list, add this new score. And then let's do save scores. Because once we've entered this state, we are not going to be modifying the scores anymore. So once we've added the score that we came into this state with, it's done. So we can immediately save it so that it's updated. Let's go into our score package and create a UI package. And let's make a new Java class. I'm going to call it UI high score, maybe? And I want this to be a vertical container. And then let's make a constructor. So public UI high score. And this will take in the score list that it's going to display. So first of all, I want this to be centered on our screen. So make a new alignment that will be in the center and center. And then I'm gonna center my children for this one. And I'm gonna start by adding a new UI header that I'm gonna call high score. Then let's make a container that will contain the score rows. And for each score, inside of score list, get top 10. I will do score list container, add UI component, let's say create score row from this score. Wait, core from this score. So let's make that method. This is gonna have a container for this row. I'm gonna say score row, new horizontal container. And first, score row, let's add UI component, new UI text. I'm gonna do score, get formatted timestamp, and we need to import that. And then I'm gonna add a horizontal divider. And then I'm gonna add a UI text with the value of the score get score. And then let's return this. And after we've done that, let's add this score list container. And then let's add a button. That'll take us back to the menu. There we go. So now we have a UI for it as well. So I'm going to go back to the score state and I'm going to add this UI. And we have UI canvas now. So add UI component, new UI high score, and we have our score list. All right, now all we have to do is try this out. And I'm thinking we're going to change in our game, in our menu, we're gonna change the menu button to a finished button instead. That'll take us to a UI high score, and we can actually do that now because it's probably very quick. So instead of menu, I'm just gonna say finished, and the next state isn't gonna be a menu state, but a score state. Since we know that we are coming from the game state, let's just tack it on here. And I'm just going to put these on several lines so it's easier to see because now we need to give it the score. So I'm going to say score.create new, and then let's cast this to game state, the state that we have, and say get score. So I know this doesn't look too well, but it's going to work. So great. Now let's check that out. Okay, so now we have this menu that says finished. So let's press it. And there you have it. You have a high score. So right now we set a new score. That was 0. So not great. But then let's play again. And I'm just going to isolate someone here. Woo, 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 woo. Woo, 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 woo. Okay, so now we have minus 500. Let's just finish this game. Okay, so we ended up further down instead of this one who got 0. So the 0 score one has the high score currently. Yay, I have the highest score. So maybe we don't want it to register the score if we don't complete the game. So that's something that we can look at, to only enter this state if you've actually won, or whatever we want. But there you go. Now you have a high score and it will be persisted between games. So thank you all for watching and I will see you soon. Hej då!